What's up, everyone? We are diving back into the multiverse today for another epic, which is: what if Naruto was born in hell and became the strongest devil? Hellwing Naruto Part 1. If you enjoy this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more fanfics like this. Now let's dive right into the fanfic. It had been 5 months since the attempt on summoning Naruto, and ever since he had cancelled the first attempt, more summons have come in more than ever, making Naruto quite annoyed, even more so with how much more frequent they had gotten. This made the devil greatly annoyed at the fact how this human was so stubborn in summoning. You see, humans sometimes have the ability to call forth a demon from hell for their services, only with them to provide a trade for their services. Now in the ranks of demon, the higher the rank, the greater price for the demon's services is. Naruto, being the most high-level demon side by side with Lucifer, made the price for summoning him to greatest of all. Grr, this is getting annoying. Just need to find out what this human wants, before I kill him or her, he said with an annoyed growl. So letting the pull guide him, Naruto was pulled into the air by a black portal. Not knowing of this event will change his demonic immortal life forever. Konohagakure Hokage Monument. Upon the mountain newly named as the Hokage Monument, was a woman whom was dressed in formal clothing with her red hair tied in a bun. Her face was by human standards the face of a goddess, as was her whole body. Her milky white skin glowed in the midnight sky, and her violet eyes seemed almost unworldly if someone gazed into them, yet as of now they held a deep hatred and anger at something or someone. She was wearing a royal-looking kimono with swirls for some kind designed all over, overall giving her a very royal former appearance. This woman was Uzumaki Mito, heir to the Uzumaki clan and wife to the Shadaime Hokage Hashirama Senju. Right now at the moment her eyes were glaring at the stone face of Hashirama with pure murder in her deep violet eyes. Her fists were clenched so tight blood was dripping from her knuckles, which were pale white due to the intensity of how hard she was clenching her fists. However, she heard the sound D of swirling and the cackling of electricity, causing her to turn around, and upon looking over at the summoning circle her eyes gleamed in satisfaction as a smile crossed her face when she saw the black swirling portal start to slowly open up. Thank goodness, someone answered my call, she uttered as the portal opened fully before she saw something come out of the portal. As it did, her breath hitched in her throat as she looked at the demonic yet godly handsome man before her. A blush spread across her face as she looked over his body with wide eyes, that is until his eyes snapped open, making her stiffen from the sinister look in his purple malevolent eyes. By looking at his very body, no, just by being in his presence in a few seconds, Mito felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand straight up and every fiber of her being screamed at her to run away, but she couldn't, not for the fact her legs were paralyzed in fear, but the fact she had a reason for summoning one such as he to her realm. Yet the aura of this man caused all her senses to go haywire and her soul to quiver in terror before this man's piercing purple orbs. Naruto himself raised a mental eyebrow at what he was seeing. The human before him was most definitely strange, for first of all, she, unlike many other humans, hadn't fallen to their knees in fear or ran away like cowards. Second of all, he had to admit the mortal woman was quite the beauty even to demon standards, and that said a lot. Last of all, he could sense the Yuki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune within her, making him snort a bit on the inside. That would mean she was the Jinchuriki of that little fox then. Biju in hell were nothing but a mockery to their fellow demons, since they were enslaved by humans for so long, leashed by them like pets, or used as weapon to do their bidding. Truly as was a pathetic life to be a Biju, even worse a Jinchuriki as well, for he knew how much humans despised what they didn't understand or couldn't control for themselves. Mentally he let out a small smirk when he felt the Kyuubi's fear. It was practically using this human as a catalyst to release its fear, to show him it was submissive in his presence. "Why have you called me here, mortal?" he said with a grunt of irritation. Mito immediately bowed, making Naruto raise an eyebrow a bit. Usually humans would demand demons for something, not caring they were in the presence of a being that could kill them without a second thought. But this one, she was different. She was respective and knew when in the presence of Something of a much higher level of power than her to be respectful. "I'm sorry for my frequent summons, your lordship, but I was in desperate need of help and I needed help by any means necessary. Even if it meant summoning a demon," she said in a respectful tone. Hearing this, Naruto spoke. "I see, and do you by chance know of what the exchange is for summoning a demon?" Only for her to look at him in confusion, making him internally growl in annoyance. "You no, all I know is that it's a last resort technique only meant for the Uzumakis. The other pieces of the information has been lost for centuries since it was written by the Rakudo Sennin himself." This made Naruto give a small cold chuckle of amusement. The Rakudo Sennin, that wretched pathetic child. Haha, what a pitiful human he was. The man by all rights was a demon made human, since he was the one to bring upon the shinobi era along with its wars, and Biju. The man was a laughing stock in hell and is still locked all the way in the 9th level of hell for betraying Kami's wishes. "I see, then let me explain to you, human, the rules for this summoning, for you see, we demons don't do things for free. First is that when you want something done, we want something in equal value for exchange. Now the higher the demon you summon, the higher the price for the exchange is. For example, if you summoned a low-class demon, then your exchange for its service is a minimum. Mito took this all in with a frown, but accepting it anyway. Then by chance, what class are you? Only for Naruto to give her a motionless gaze before speaking in a monotone fashion laced with a small sense of amusement. I'm the highest level a demon could ever be. I'm a demon titan, he said, getting a shocked look from her before she remembered why she had exactly summoned him. The acceptance was back in her eyes just as quickly as it was gone. This made Naruto raise an eyebrow in curiosity. By chance, mortal, what is it you want me to do? Which she just growled a bit before looking at him with eyes that held so much anger and hatred it honestly surprised him a mortal could have such amount of hatred, but there was also an equal amount of desperation and pleading in her violet orbs. I need your help. My husband has used a Uzumaki Fuinjutsu upon me, making me look as if I was in love with him. The Fuinjutsu was actually passed down from a demon that specialized in demon magic, which evolved into this particular seal. It needs the blood of the user and makes the target lose all sense of rationality and makes them drones and follows every order the user commands. The bastard has been using our arranged marriage as a way for Konoha to use my clan by me as the link. This got Naruto's attention right away. If there was one thing nobody knew about Naruto, it was that he had a slight protective sense of women. He still remembers how his father protected his mother by so many demons from when they wanted to take her away. Plus it was a surprise that this human was using such a seal, but there you go, another human with a power-hungry complex using others for their own needs, such a fine example of why humanity in general was a despicable race. Shaking his head, Naruto spoke with a bit more authority yet a slight protectiveness in his voice. I see, and what is it exactly you want me to do? Only for Mito, this mortal actually kneel before him, her head touching the ground in complete obedience in the form of the Dogeza position. Her voice struck true, though as quiet as it was. The begging and desperation in her voice was there. I need you to remove these seals upon me and to kill Hashirama. He has by all rights abused the treaty between my clan and Konoha, and I want his death, paying the price for it. This made Naruto have a twitch to his lips. This woman was interesting. She was by all means ready to do anything so this man that has tricked her killed. Ah, I see. The removal of those seals and of the death of this human, this can be done, but the price is very steep, making her look at him in acceptance, not really caring what price would be needed for this. It couldn't be that bad, right? I don't care what the price is as long as that man pays for his crimes against not only me but my clan as well. Making Naruto nod. Very well then, the price is your soul, making her eyes go wide in horror. Her soul, that was the price of the deal. Looking up at the being she summoned, she spoke in a shaky tone. My soul. Is there anything else I can offer? This made Naruto frown before closing his eyes in thought. On one hand, he could just say no and have her take the offer or not, but something in him was telling him to give her another choice. It was like an irritating flea that won't quite biting you. That's when he realized the only other option. Looking upon her pleading form, he spoke. Well, there is the other option. Instead of the price of your soul, you would have to sacrifice your humanity, meaning, on the day of your death, I would be there to take your soul and place it into a demon body, and you would have to be my slave for an eternity from there on. It is your choice, mortal. His tone saying it broke all arguments, knowing he wouldn't make any other choices. Mito frowned while thinking real hard on this. She had two choices: to either give up her soul, where it would most definitely be tortured in the hell for summoning a demon, or take the second option where she was already a slave to Hashirama, which in that was bad enough where he was abusive to her, but nothing more than that. But to become a demon and a slave to this devil. She honestly thought it could be better if the sight of him being neutral about her, while Hashirama was more of a liar and more of an aggressive person. Though the slight protective aura she sensed from him made her feel so comfortable around him, it confused her. Really, she had only met this being once and already she was more comfortable around him than any other person. Thinking of her decision, since there was no other option, the action of summoning a demon was a ticket straight to hell. Heaven was closed off from you forevermore. I accept, as long as that bastard pays for what he has done. Making Naruto's eyes widen a bit before returning to normal now, while he remained impassive on the outside. On the inside he was thinking on how this mortal woman was getting much more interesting in his eyes. She is willing to become a demon and serve me for an eternity. All to have this man killed and those seals taken off her. Hey, I'm starting to like this one. I see. Very well then, the deal is accepted, making her smile with a big grin. Thank you, your lordship, only for him to wave it off with an impassive face. No lordship. Anyway, show me these seals of yours, making her blush a bit, remembering exactly where they were. Shakily she grabbed her kimono and opened it up slightly where her stomach was. It showed even a little bit how toned her stomach was and how serious she took her training. Mentally nodding that she was a serious person when it came to fighting, he'd have to keep that in mind. Channel your chakra, in which she did before a Fuinjutsu seal appeared over her navel, showing it was the same seal holding the Kyuubi no Kitsune. that is before a second layered seal appeared over this seal, making her open up her kimono a bit more to her embarrassment. Naruto eyed the seal with his hand running over the seal. This included physical touch, which made Mito shiver at his touch. Closing his eyes in concentration, Naruto missed the slight blush on Mito's face, which grew every second as his hand kept studying the seal. Mito herself had to bite back a moan when his hand ran over her delicate soft skin, since she had never been touched by a man before, since Hashirama has only kissed her to signify the wedding. Naruto's eyes snapped open before a dark purple aura covered the hand upon Mito's stomach. First the seals, Akuma no Yona Magiku, Hatsubai, Demon Magic, released. Then the purple Ukiah left Naruto's hand and spread all over the enslavement seal, and, before Mito's amazement, started to corrode the seal before it flaked off like dry paint and turning to dust in the wind. Seeing the seal completely taken off her almost made Mito break down in joy, knowing she was almost free from Hashirama's enslavement. Thank you, only for Naruto to nod before speaking. Now the second, where is this Hashirama Senju? She pointed over the monument and at the large compound in the forest. Seeing this, Naruto nodded before to Mito's shock picked her before heaving her over his shoulder. What are you doing? She asked with a blush rising to her face at what her lord was gonna do. She was blushing, for she could feel Naruto's muscles through his clothing, and she honestly could say she hadn't felt such a thing before. They were hard as solid steel. We're gonna get to the compound, what did you think? And before Mito could retort, Naruto's body gave off an purplish glow before teleporting away, leaving a purple glow of where he was before it to vanished in the air. Arriving at the compound, Naruto dropped onto the roof with Mito on his shoulder, while said Uzumaki was gaping at how they just moved from one place to another, and in such speed as well. Alright, now tell me where Hashirama's room is located, to which she pointed at the building at the far corner in the west where the main part of the compound was. Jumping over the rooftops silently, they landed on the ground without a sound. With that, Naruto silently set Mito down with her shaky legs barely holding her up, still shocked at how Naruto teleported from one place to another. Follow me, I want you to witness my end of the bargain so you would know I tell the truth of his death. She quickly nodded, and with they entered the building, disabling all traps without a sound. Once inside, Naruto saw the sleeping form of Hashirama, his head being the only thing visible, the rest of his body was covered by the blankets. Seeing his target in sight, Naruto moved quickly as Mito followed in, silently watching with great content, knowing Hashirama was gonna get his just rewards. Appearing over Hashirama's sleeping body, Naruto placed his hand over the man's head before speaking quietly. Akuma no Yona Magiku, Shinshoku Suripu, Demon Magic, eroding sleep. Right then a greenish aura covered Naruto's hand before placing it on Hashirama's hand, making the man's eyes snap open in shock, but, before he could even let out a word, Naruto's other hand suddenly slapped onto his mouth. As the spell took its effect quickly, Mito watched in a sense of fascination as Hashirama's body started to let out a green-filled smoke, while his face started to wrinkle and dry up as his eyes slowly, ever so slowly, looked at her with anger and hate before they melted in a greenish liquid, as did the rest of his body, leaving only his skeleton remaining. Wow, she said in amazement as Naruto stood up before walking over to Mito. Seeing him coming, she quickly bowed, knowing he had helped her more than anyone else has in just a few minutes. Seeing this, Naruto tapped her shoulder, making her look up, only for Naruto to speak. Now it's your turn, please show me your right shoulder. She did to her confusion pulled her kimono down a bit, showing her unblemished pale-skinned shoulder. Naruto then gathered his Ukiah into his index finger before placing it onto her shoulder. She bit back a scream from the burning sensation as Naruto pulled his finger back to show the symbol of slave of Hellwing before it disappeared into her skin. She looked up confused a bit, only for him to turn around and speak as the dark portal swirled around his feet. That symbol shows that you are my slave. When your times comes I will know, and I will be there to take your soul with me. Till then, mortal, enjoy your last few years of your human life. To which she just nodded with a tearful smile on her face. Despite being branded with a slave mark, she was all too happy to be the slave of the very person that saved her from the nightmare of Hashirama. May I know your name before you go? To which Naruto just looked over his shoulder as the dark portal was midway of opening. Ah yes, my name is Naruto. Hellwing Naruto, remember it well, he said with a ghost of a smile before the portal slowly took his form into portal, taking him back to hell. Mito just nodded, admiration shining in her eyes. I will forever, Naruto-sama, and with that Naruto's body was fully enveloped in the portal separating master and slave for the next few years. Hell, dropping from the air he landed in a crouch before standing back up. Looking up into the portal, Naruto watched it fully close up before letting out a small chuckle which to many would have sent demons into a state of pure fear from the sinister feel to it. Hey, that woman is quite interesting for a mortal, wonder how she'll be as a demon. With that, the devil continued his travel back to his residence, awaiting the next few years for his newest slave's death. Only for her rebirth into something new. Only did Naruto not know that his immortal life become very hectic in the coming centuries. 1 millennium later, Hell with Naruto. It had been a millennium in Hell since Naruto's summoning from Mito, and of his help with her and also of his branding her as his slave. Ever since then, as he awaited for her death, Naruto had been busy with attacking Lucifer's armies as well as Yami's own. Since he had gotten an invitation to become one of Yami's generals. Predictably, Yami didn't like his rejection to become one of his generals and put out a full warrant for his head. Ever since then he had been killing off any and all demons or armies both Lucifer or Yami had sent after him, while making his power go up with each battle. He knew he was strong, sure, but so was Lucifer. Since he was a devil as well, he would have gotten stronger too. His fame and reputation got much more known throughout Hell, for not only his power but his deeds of fighting both Lucifer and Yami on both sides. It was quite legendary in itself that one being in Hell could fight two other enemies' forces alone. His deeds and actions have even reached heaven itself by Yami's words to his fellow deities, but none did anything really, for Hell was Demon's realm where the unholy beings reside. The legendary devil hadn't changed since then, and was right now fighting another legion of demons from Lucifer. Only this one was much more in quantity. Jumping over another demon, Naruto stabbed another behind him by his hand before pulling it out along with the brain of the demon, before shoving the brain into the mouth of another, before ripping its head off, spraying blood all over the blood-soaked ground. Looking behind him, Naruto spun around, delivering a bone-shattering punch to another demon's rib cage, shattering it like a mirror. Right then he grabbed the demon by the face, lifted him off the ground before crushing his skull like a balloon. Pointing his hand toward the oncoming horde of demons, Naruto spoke. "Haru, Funshutsu Pira, Hellfire, erupting pillar," he stated calmly before circling around the horde of demons was a crimson flame with violet and black flames mixed in. To their confusion it circled them completely and, before they knew it, a giant pillar of hellfire erupting beneath them, incinerating them completely. Flesh, muscle, bone and even the ash was burned away, leaving nothing but a scorched ground with flickers of the fire left over. Turning around once more, Naruto swept his arm to 20 more demons before speaking. Bakuhatsu no Yami Dama, exploding darkness sphere, before a pure black sphere formed in Naruto's hand before it shot right into the demons before exploding in an orb of darkness, the energy destroying the demons completely from the inside. Naruto ignored their screams or the many body around him of the demons. "Lucifer, truly you are a fool, these demons are so much weaker than the other ones. Never could train your other lesser subordinates right." With a shake of his head, Naruto walked away without a single scratch or a stain of blood upon him. Behind him was numerous to countless bodies of dead demons. The flames of hellfire burned around the blood-soaked battlefield. Naruto's sinister purple eyes glowed in the light of the flames. Getting a few yards away, Naruto suddenly felt a pull upon him before he looked up at the pitch-black clouds of hell with recognition in his eyes. "Seems it is time, her death has come." With that, Naruto snapped his fingers before the dark portal appeared in front of him. Sighing, he walked through knowing he was about to get an addition to his life. Ningenkai Konohagakure room of Uzumaki Mito. Appearing in a barely decorated room, Naruto looked around before setting his sights upon the old wrinkled body of Uzumaki Mito. He knew it was her, for he could sense the mark he gave her all those years ago rapidly release his yukai in his appearance. That's when he saw her blue glowing soul coming out of her body. When it fully did, it showed her form from when he first met her. The seal must have branded her young form at the time into her soul, tying her to be young looking for all time. Opening her eyes, Mito looked around herself before looking on her bed. That's when she saw her dead old body. Her eyes widened before they remembered what happened. She had finally died at old age of being 120. The Uzumaki longevity took its toll upon her greatly. She had lived up for a century and 20 years. "Mito, it is time," she heard looking around the room. Her eyes widened briefly before they gained a full look of recognition, and another look in her eyes flickered in before that was quickly hidden. "Oh, Naruto-sama, I guess it is time then," which the devil nodded. Sighing, "Very well, I am ready." Nodding at this, Naruto went to her dead body and picked it gently, making her soul raise an eyebrow in question. Seeing this, he spoke. "In order for you to become a demon, I need your human body for the ritual," he said, and with a snap the dark twisting portal opened up with Naruto walking directly to it. Looking back though, he saw Mito grabbing something before walking toward him. Scrutinizing his gaze, he saw it as an old picture frame. From what he could see, it was Mito in her human old body, smiling happily with a young little long-haired red head in her arms, smiling as well, her violet eyes the same shade as her own, just much deeper with full of life. "Sorry Naruto-sama, I was just getting something personal. Thank you for giving me the time to get this," she said gratefully. He just nodded before walking through the portal, her following without a second thought. Knowing her new life as Naruto's slave had just begun. Hell. Walking out of the dark portal, Naruto looked over his shoulder and saw the soul form of Uzumaki Mito looking around in yet a little nervousness. Understandable, after all humans usually just get tortured here beyond reason. But she was a slave, she was going to be living in this realm from now on. He could already feel the surrounding yokai gather at her soul, so acting quickly he spoke. Mito, come, we must leave, which she just nodded a bit, feeling a weird energy within her building up similar to how the Kyuubi's was, but much more potent. She followed him after a while and the energy seemed to disappear and was replaced with the yokai flowing from Naruto. Anyo Naruto-sama, how well does this ritual by chance work? Which he just closed his eyes before kneeling on the ground. Well, first off, your body needs to be young so your soul can be perfectly fit, since you look the same when I met you. This made her look at with confusion in her eyes. How would you make my body be young again? Only for Naruto to place his hand upon Mito's human body before he spoke. Akuma no Yona Magiku. Renewal Demon Magic. Renewal. With that, Mito watched as her body glowed white before it dimmed, showing to her shocked newly young body again, all the same as she remembered it when she first met Naruto. It requires the soul, in this case you, and your dead body, while the yokai in hell gathers into the body, making you into a demon. Now get into the circle when I make it. She nodded, following her master's order without question. Very well then, and nicking his finger drawing a bit of blood, he drew a 6-foot circle with his blood before placing Mito's human body in the circle. Before he drew a few intricate symbols all connecting to her body. Mito watched carefully before she heard him speak. Now get into the body, to which she did and pushed herself back into her body. Naruto then slammed his hands on the circle, shouting, Akuma Magiku, Gishiki wa, Tamashita Nikate o Ketsugo Suru, Demon Magic, Ritual, Combined Soul and Body. In a flash of light blinding Naruto slightly. When the light dimmed, Naruto rose an eyebrow in slight surprise. It wasn't that Mito looked exactly the same from when he first met her, but that she looked more, what's the word he was looking for? Changed perhaps. Either way, she looked much more beautiful than she did before. She didn't wear the same clothing she wore when she first met him, but now just a simple black kimono with crimson trim around the edges. Her bust was much bigger than what it was before, maybe DD cup. Her skin was the same glowing porcelain that it was before when she was a human. Her eyes were the same and all, but what really got Naruto's attention was that the yokai flowing through her felt the same as his own. That meant only one thing. Wow, I feel so different even though I don't look all that changed. Well, except the breeds, that was a surprise, she added mentally, looking down at her bust. You are actually, when we made that deal you sacrificed your humanity and my slave. But what demon you became I'm quite surprised at. You're a devil, just like I am. It must be because of my yokai flowed into you when I came to get you. My energy must have channeled slowly into you, making her go wide-eyed for a moment before they returned to normal. I see, then how do I tell if I've become this devil as you say? Which Naruto just closed his eyes with a sigh. We devils have a transformation that mark us for what we are. You'll learn to gain yours just as I did. Now come, you have training to do. I won't have a weak slave. I will be teaching you from here on out about the techniques we use here in hell. And with a turn he started walking away with her looking at his back with a soft smile. Thank you, Naruto-sama, as she felt a tug in her stomach as she looked upon the form of her new master. She quickly followed him, knowing her new life would be quite interesting from now on. Millenniums later, thousands of years later, hell. It's been millenniums since Naruto gained his slave, the woman now devil Uzumaki Mito, and ever since then he had been training her and himself over the countless years. He couldn't let her walk around with him until she was able to fend for herself, so he had, to her surprise, dedicated most of his time to train her in the 3 main abilities of hell and in her devil abilities. He had of course come out of hiding a few times to wipe out an army or 2 from Lucifer or Yami, so the 2 didn't think he had given up. The results were, for the better word, surprising, since Mito had proven to be a great student under his tutelage. She was more of a long-range fighter than anything, specializing in demon magic and darkness abilities, but also her Fuinjutsu. She took those abilities with her from Ningenkai and studied with adding them and demon magic together. Of course she wasn't up to standard fighting an army of angels from heaven, but is able to fend for herself greatly against demons of all kinds. Though on Lucifer's level she was nowhere near that level yet, she still needed much training before that. She had gained her transformation of becoming a true devil, but understandably she was shaken at first at her appearance, but with the reassurance from Naruto and of how to change back, she quickly learned how to. Overall, Naruto could say she was quite the learner, hell, maybe a genius when learning how to fight. Now he himself didn't slack up either. He had been training by fighting armies of Lucifer and Yami while also sparring with Mito. Even though she wasn't nowhere near his level, it was good to fight one of your own kind. Over the years though, for Naruto, things with him and Mito have been strange. For he wasn't all cold-hearted to her, even if she was a former mortal, since she was different from the rest of those arrogant fools. He knew this, for she was highly respectful and obedient towards him. For he was her master, he was also her teacher and protector as well. For when word got out that Naruto had a slave, many demons flocked to see who it was, and when they saw the divine beauty that was Mito, many tried to take her away. which resulted in many getting slaughtered or torn limb from limb by Naruto since she wasn't strong enough for a few of those demons. Hell, a demon titan by the name of Gilgamesh challenged Naruto for the right of Mito. This of course irritated the super-powered devil, and to Mito's amazement, Naruto single-handedly in under 3 minutes took down the draconic demon. A demon that held the same rank as his own. This of course had news spread all across Hell like a demonic wildfire. Once many learned that Naruto took down a demon titan, but also Gilgamesh, one of the most powerful demons in Hell, in only under 3 minutes. Ever since then, Mito had been at his side much more than a slave is supposed to be. Maybe it was that he reacted so violently to how the demons were wanting her. Maybe it was that she felt so protected around him. She honestly didn't know what she felt, but there was one time that during one of their sparring sessions did she see a side of her master that she rarely ever saw. Flashback. Panting on the ground was Mito Uzumaki, slave of Hellwing Naruto, and right now she was dead tired after the whole day training session her master had brought her out to. She never complained though, for she felt she was getting strong each day they sparred. Right now sweat was running down her face with her usual bun still there. Littered all around the ground was craters from demon magic to darkness attacks she had been practicing. Naruto himself was standing beside her with an approving look in his eyes, his arms crossed over his chest, his eyes scanned the ground before looking down at his slave. She was reasonably enough tired, no, exhausted was the better word. She had to fight him with him using 20% of his power. And even then he didn't need to transform, unlike how she had to. Nodding in approval, Naruto turned away before speaking. Your training is done for the day, Mito. Go rest, you've earned it, with some approval in his tone which made her feel so warm. She always felt that way when she got his approval on how she trained. He was always there watching to make sure she needed help or to stop any malfunctions with her attacks. It was hard to earn his praise, but she has on every session of training with him. Thank you, Naruto-sama, I shall go rest. I really need it, he. Before she got up on her wobbly legs before trying to walk back at the house, only for her to fall to a knee in exhaustion. Panting greatly, she felt a bit ashamed by falling before her master. That's when she heard footsteps coming to her. That's when she felt herself being lifted up with her master supporting her, with his having her right arm over his shoulder and his other arm supporting her other side. She of course blushed a bit from the contact but hid it well. Naruto-sama, what are you doing? She asked, confused, since her master had never really shown this kind of support before. He was there to help in her training, but she had always needed to walk back to the house to rest. But this time she felt too exhausted to even move a finger. Naruto closed his eyes before speaking. You're too exhausted to move, Mito, I can see this. I shall help you to your room where you can rest. And with that she nodded a bit before leaning her head a bit on his shoulder as he led her back to her room. Once they entered, Naruto unfolded the covers and sheet before laying her down slowly and gently, she mentally added, before covering her up. After this, he pulled the needle holding her hair up in a bun, letting it fall upon her back, showing her long straight maroon hair. There was an emotion that flickered in his eyes when he did this, but she didn't see it. She was too surprised at the fact he was putting her to bed to even speak. Turning away, Naruto looked over his shoulder. You did exceptional today, Mito. Get some rest, you've earned it, before closing the door, leaving his slave to think about his attitude just now. The look in his eyes were a little bit softer than they were before. Why is that? Naruto-sama is a devil, a demon titan, and has lived countless eons, and yet he looked so gentle with me, it's so confusing. With that she let her eyes close, thinking about the small changes happening with her master. The next day, as Mito came out of room from getting her rest, she was still putting up her hair in her usual bun, only to see her master standing on the balcony overlooking Hell. Walking up to him, she heard him speak. I see you're awake, Mito, that is good, your training will resume later today, be ready, he said with his usual indifference. She knew. Looking at him she nodded, thinking what she saw yesterday was but a dream. Very well, Naruto-sama, I'll go get ready, and with that she turned around and began to walk back. Oh, and Mito, making her turn around a bit in question. Yes, curious to what her master was wanting to say. You look better without the bun, it makes you more beautiful, he said, still looking over the balcony. So he never saw the wide-eyed look he was getting from her. The Uzumaki woman was staring at her master in complete shock. Not once has he ever complimented her before. She never really thought he would do such a thing, or even expected it of him. But after realization kicked in, a blush on great proportions came upon her face as her hands trembled with the needle that would put her hair in the bun before she got herself under control. Though a big smile stretched her beautiful features showed on her face as she spoke. Thank you, and Naruto-sama, she said before he waved her off, making her stumble back into the house to get herself ready for the next part of her training. Though upon Naruto's own face was a small ghost of a smile as well. Flashback end. Ever since then, She never put her hair in the bun again, letting her hair grow out, making it very long, touching her lower back with two bangs framing her face, making her so much more entrancing that some mistook her for a succubus. It seemed to please her master, and that was all she cared for. Walking upon the dirt road of hell, Naruto along with Mito were on their way to attack another legion of demons, since Lucifer had been getting much more desperate to kill Naruto by any means over the years, even by one day sending the three-headed dog called Cerberus, Hell's Gate Guardian. This of course made Naruto quite annoyed, and it didn't make it better that on that same day countless other demons were flocking all over Mito, with him killing each and every one. So it was bad for the demonic dog that it picked on the wrong day to piss off Naruto. That is the same day Cerberus was literally neutered by Naruto before sent flying across hell and into Lucifer's castle. Naruto was irritated that day and made an example out of the guardian of Hell's Gates to show he was not to be annoyed. That's when Naruto felt a tug. It was the same tug he felt when Mito first summoned him. This made him frown, which Mito caught. Naruto-sama, is something wrong? Worried since he has never shown this reaction before, it was like something was irritating him more than those pesky demons that flocked to her. The look in his eyes showed great annoyance as well. No. It's just a summoning. I guess I'll take it. Mito, come, let us go see what this mortal has summoned us for before I kill it for annoying me, he said with a dark look in his eyes that sent a shiver down Mito's spine. A swirling dark portal opened up above them, which made them float right into one, just plain irritated at the summoning, and Mito curious to who had such a summoning for the demons. Konohagakure, Forest of Death. Standing upon the great Forest of Death was a woman, a very beautiful woman who looked to be the age of 22, her whole appearance that by all standards looked like a goddess made flesh. Her long maroon hair that touched her legs with two bangs framing her heart-shaped face, making it look completely angelic. Her eyes were that of a deep violet with an inner hatred and anger in them, that of which would make any low-willed person fall to their knees or outright pass out. Her pale porcelain skin shined greatly in the dark forest with the moonlight casting down upon the air she stood. Her arms trembled while her knuckles were popping as blood dripped from her hands. Her teeth were clenched so hard they could break. Though the swollen belly showed that the woman was pregnant and in her later months. This woman was Uzumaki Kushina, last remaining Uzumaki and wife of Namikaze Minato. Right now the woman was standing in front of the same summoning seal that her old friend and her role model Uzumaki Mito gave her just in case something truly horrible happened. She was given this to her and was warned to be as a last resort. Kid, I'm telling you, you had no other choice. Besides, with your luck you might just summon a demon more honorable than the ones then I've seen in my time. I know Akemi-chan, but Mito-sama always told me when I was a child that to use this summoning was a ticket straight to hell. I worry for my unborn child. What would she do without me here? I don't trust that bastard Minato, and most assuredly Hiruzen. I trust no one in the leaf at all, only you. I know, Kit, I know, but this is the best way to make sure your daughter has a good life when she is born. That human, Namikaze, needs to die for his sins. Heck, with your luck you may summon the same demon Mito-chan summoned. Akemi muttered faintly, but Kushina caught it and knew what she was talking about. Yeah, I'm kind of hoping, if it is, though it's a very slim chance. You've told me about this demon before. I just hope it's someone like him and not some distrusting demon. That's when she felt the sudden pulse of Yukai before below the summoning circle a dark portal started to open up, only this time it was opening up for two people from the size. Though when it fully opened and the first person to walk out made Kushina voluntarily blush madly at the appearance of the Adonis of a man before her. Oh Kami, that's him, Kit. That's the very demon that helped Mito-chan. Your luck is great, Kit. By God, he looks a little like that bastard Minato, but only the hair, and even that is but a little resemblance. Everything else about him is. That's when the second person came out. This made both Kushina and Akemi gasp in shock, for it was her friend from when she was a child. Uzumaki Mito, and she was much more beautiful than she saw in the pictures when she was younger. Her hair was longer, not done in her usual bun, it reached to her lower back. Her clothing though was much more different though. From the royal-looking kimono she used to wear was a now battle-fitted kimono, crimson in color with black trimmed edges. Flame designs littered all over the kimono, with the Uzugakure clan symbol etched onto her back, only with flames circling it like a ring of fire protecting it. Kushina noticed her aura though. She walked with confidence and power that most couldn't believe, with only the man in front of her knowing. She carried herself greatly, making her slightly wish she had that kind of confidence at the moment. But she really had no other choice at the moment. Gasping, Mito looked upon the form of Uzumaki Kushina with shock in her eyes. Naruto saw this and raised an eyebrow. Mito, is something wrong? Making her shake her head a bit before speaking with a big smile on her face. No. Nothing's wrong at all. This is just the little girl I told you about. You know, the one in the picture. This made a slight recognition come into his eyes along with a little surprise. This woman, which almost looked like an exact replica of Mito, was that exuberant little child. Kushina heard the conversation and spoke. Mito-sama, what are you doing here? ITT thought UDD died, shaken at seeing her ancestor before her which was supposed to be dead. Mito nodded but, Naruto spoke first. Mito, you can explain later, I would like to know why you summoned me mortal. To which Kushina remembered exactly why she did and scowled. Namikaze, he somehow got into the Shadaime's jutsu library and found a certain fuinjutsu which was originally the Uzumaki clan's forbidden fuinjutsu. It was the enslavement seal he put upon me, making Mito grit her teeth in anger remembering that accursed fuinjutsu while Naruto frowned seeing how similar this situation was turning out to be. I see, and when did you find out about this exactly? I can see your pregnancy would mean it hasn't been too long. To which she looked down at her swollen belly from anger to complete love as she rubbed it gently with a soft smile. This may have resulted in this but, I would love this child forever. I found out about this 2 weeks ago when I was completely out of chakra. The seal appeared on me as my chakra was returning back to me over the day. Once I was able to recognize it and find the seals in Minato's room. I went with the only way to make sure he paid for what he has done. Even with whatever the consequences were for this, making Mito look down sadly while Naruto's own eyes gained a slight solemn look before they fixated upon the slight bruise around her wrist. Mortal, where did you get that bruise from exactly? He asked, his eyes completely fixated upon her wrist. Mito looked at the wound as well and scowled while Kushina looked at it with a glare. Namikaze, he tried to hurt me again, but I got away in time, but I did get this before I left. This made Naruto freeze in his tracks before he tightened his fists making them pop a bit before speaking. I see, I'm guessing you are wanting these seals off then. To which she nodded immediately along with her clenching her fists together. Yes, and I want you to do one more thing for me, kill Namikaze Minato, that is all I ask of you. To which Naruto just nodded with a slight look on anxiety of getting to murder this wrecked-head piece of filth. Mito, though remembered those exact words since she too spoke them to have Hashirama killed and knew the price for it. It wasn't a bad price but, for Kushina, it would be bad. I see, do you know the price of the exchange? To which she nodded hesitantly. Why yes, when I use the summoning my entrance to hell is assured but, also, you are to take my soul in exchange for, killing another human, she said while looking down at her swollen belly where her unborn daughter slept. Naruto nodded knowing she knew this from Mito, since the woman must have written down the rules for her to know for future reference. Good you know then, before Mito interjected. Wait, Naruto-sama, I ask of you for something important. I know it's asking a lot I know but, please, will you give her the choice you gave me? Which made Naruto frown before he closed his eyes in thought while Kushina looked at her curiously. There was another choice to this double-edged summoning. It is her decision, if she accepts. I will, allow it, to which Mito grinned widely while Kushina tilted her head in confusion. You Anyo, what's the second choice, if I may ask? She asked nervously. Naruto looked at her out of the corner of his eyes and spoke. It was the choice of sacrificing your humanity and you becoming my slave. It was the very same one I gave Mito Uzumaki here. This made Kushina reel back a bit, sacrificing her humanity. Becoming a slave, she was already a slave to Namikaze and a tool for Konoha. She didn't wanna be a slave again under an abusive being. Mito seeing her hesitance looked at Naruto with a bit of pleading in her eyes. Naruto saw this and groaned a bit before nodding. Smiling in thanks, she walked over to the trembling form of Kushina and kneeled before her. Kushi-chan, look at me please. Kushina looked at her curiously as she hugged her swollen belly for a type of comfort. I know this choice may seem bad at first but, Naruto-sama is actually a great person once you get to know him. The idea of sacrificing your humanity may seem bad also but, I got to say it's better being a demon than a human, she said with a cheeky grin. Kushina blinked at her, once, twice, 3 times before speaking. See can Naruto truly get rid of my nightmare? Can he get rid of my enslavement to Namikaze and let me have the time I want with my unborn child? If I can, that is all I would truly want. Mito just smiled reassuringly before speaking. Of course he can, he did the same for me. How do you think that bastard Hashirama was killed, She said amusingly. This made her eyes widen before looking at Naruto's form, his piercing purple eyes staring at her with a look that looked right into her very soul. Deciding on what to do, she finally decided. Except Naruto-sama, please get rid of my curse, get rid of my enslavement and kill Namikaze Minato. Yelling desperately hoping this being would help her. The pain she felt after so many years coming out of her like a volcano. Seeing the woman in such a state made Naruto's purple orbs flare briefly in anger a bit before he spoke. Very well then, the deal is struck. Now Mito, have her lay down where I can see the seal. If I'm guessing where it is then she needs to lay down. To which Mito nodded helping Kushina up a bit. She laid her down to her confusion while Naruto kneeled beside her. The seal is on the seal holding the Kyuubi isn't it? To which she looked surprised at how he knew before nodding. With that, Mito slowly pulled her shirt up only above her swollen belly. This made Kushina blush in embarrassment since her pregnant belly was completely in view. Naruto nodded at Mito, before he placed his hand upon her swollen belly before gently rubbing it, his eyes closed in concentration. Kushina felt his sudden contact and had to suppress a moan as a pink hue rose to her face. His touch was so soft and gentle. It felt good. His hand upon her belly made her feel warm and protected under his dominating aura, making many in the forest completely flee from the area they were in. That's when her eyes widened when she felt the rapid kicking of her unborn daughter inside her belly. It was like she too was feeling the same thing she was and was excited at the touch. It was like she enjoyed it as much as she did. Naruto felt the child inside the woman's belly kick and suppressed a small smile as he felt the child kick at where his hand would be at. It was amusing, really. It was like a game to the child. He shook his head, mentally preparing for the removal of the seal. Mito watched the interaction with a smile. Her master, without knowing it, was a natural-born father. Whether he knew it or not was irrelevant, for she knew it. Children among the demon villages looked up to him in awe and reverence. Plus, seeing this sight of Kushina's unborn child reacting in such a way to her lord's touch alone showed Mito that her theory of him as a natural father to be quite accurate. Or was it something else? Naruto's hand started to glow in a purple aura before he spoke. Akuma no Yona Magiku, Hatsubai. Demon magic. Release. Before the purple aura came off of him and covered the enslavement seal upon Kushina's belly. And like Mito, the seal started to corrode before flaking off like dry paint before it to turn to dust in the wind. Kushina watched this all in amazement before her eyes started to swell up in tears before she fully lost it and acted. Naruto didn't expect the next thing to happen when Kushina hugged him fiercely, crying away, speaking of, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Now, Naruto was never used to this kind of touch before, and Mito saw this before gently prying off Kushina, hugging her while her master quickly stood up, straightening his clothes before looking the other way to keep the change of emotions in his eyes away from them. Damn, what's wrong with me? The mortal woman hugs me and I almost lose control of my emotions. It was a few minutes later that Kushina calmed down enough to look clearly at the person that helped her immensely. Drying her tears, Kushina silently thanked Mito. Now, Kushina, tell me where this mortal is. Namikaze Minato. His death is the second part of the bargain and I must fulfill it. Where is he? To which Kushina quickly spoke. He's at the training ground 7, it's a little ways from here and outside of Konoha mostly. Naruto nodded before he walked over to her. Kneeling down, he did something that made Mito grin and Kushina yelp in surprise. Naruto gently picked up Kushina in a bridal carry since she was pregnant, and even if he was a very evil bastard, didn't want to kill the kid. The pregnant woman's face resembled a blood-red tomato since her face was in his chest while she felt his steel-hard muscles through his fabrical clothing. She unconsciously snuggled a bit more when his more protective side of his aura came out, overcoming her and Mito. Then let us go see this human, and with that Naruto and Mito disappeared in a flash of light. Training Ground 7. Appearing on the outside of the training field, Naruto and Mito appeared with Kushina gripping his clothing very tightly, her face smashed into his chest, her eyes closed. Mito found this quite amusing while Naruto didn't know how to react to this really. Gently prying her off, he set her down before he looked at Mito. I sense the mortal's signature. Place a barrier around here where no one will hear or see this battle, also make it where no one else can get in. She nodded, and before Kushina's amazement, Mito's index finger started to glow purple before she wrote in the air, forming something kind of like a Fuinjutsu circle. Akuma Fuinjutsu. Sando to Saito Jiken Yugami Barrier, Demon Fuinjutsu. Sound and sight time distortion barrier. Before all the trees around the training grounds glowed for a second before disappearing. Nodding in approval, Naruto spoke. Very good, Mito. Now get Kushina and bring her with us. She must see this human's death to know he truly dies. To which she nodded, and with some help from Naruto, Kushina was walking with Mito behind Naruto. But along the way, it was like everything parting its way from them. Even the trees bent opposite from them while the animals all but scurried off, or the closest died from being near them. The two Uzumakis blinked before Mito sensed the growing demon bloodlust from her master. And she was a bit scared. It was a lot more terrifying than she's seen it in a long time. What the two didn't know though was that Naruto saw more than just that bruise on her wrist. When she was clutched to his body, he saw many more going along her arms. This made him speculate she was hiding many more bruises upon her body. Now he may be a devil, but to abuse a woman holding an unborn child was an act he could not forgive. It was despicable, disgusting, and outright unforgivable, and such an act is dealt with punishment in his eyes. A straight shot to hell with him being the harbinger to your trip down into the brimstone realm of Makai. Namikaze, I will show you what happens when you piss off a devil. With that, Naruto, Mito and Kushina entered through the foliage as the trees parted way and the clouds themselves splitting apart due to the overwhelming demonic aura coming off Naruto. When Naruto's eyes set upon the spiky blonde-haired human training away, his eyes showed nothing and the only word to describe his face was stoic. Mito, take Kushina and stay at least 25 feet away. I don't know what would happen if Kushina or the unborn child is affected by my yukai, so better safe than sorry. Mito did while sitting down, Kushina following as her eyes set upon the scene of what was to be where this, Naruto, would kill Minato. She so desperately wanted to see this, feeling her child kick a bit showed she too wanted to at least feel what was going to happen. Seeing this, Naruto nodded before turning his gaze toward the human before walking toward him, the grass itself burning away with each step he took. The air was even shifting uncontrollably. The trees turned dead at feeling his demonic energy coming off of him. Minato somehow felt this and turned around before his eyes widened upon seeing someone before him dressed quite strangely. It was the face that got him. The markings on his face and the crimson red lines going down his face made him feel a little weirded out. Only did when he feel the demonic energy coming off the man did he finally tense up. Who are you? To which Naruto just kept glaring at him with such unholy anger that his purple eyes seemed to tear right into Minato's soul and petrify it, making him freeze. Mortal, I have been summoned to kill you. I shall fulfill my end of the bargain. Confused a bit, Minato spoke. Wait, what are you talking about? What bargain? What summon? Who would want to kill me? His questions coming out like a rapid piston. Naruto just kept looking right at him through his very soul tonelessly. First of all, don't question me, for I will kill you with a snap of your neck. Second of all, I was given a deal to get rid of a few seals, but also to kill you, Namikaze Minato. Thirdly, that is none of your concern, and lastly, Uzumaki Kushina wants you dead for what you have done to her, and personally I agree with her. Hearing the last part made Minato's azure blue eyes narrow in anger. That bitch, ha, she put you up to this. Guess I'll have to set her straight later. Look buddy, you can just go. I don't want to hurt you now, only for him to stop talking as he fell to his knees as unbearable pressure crashed onto him. His tan face quickly went pale, sensing the great sinister aura coming off this person in front of him. Naruto slowly took a step after step toward the shaking human. It was amusing really that the human actually thought he could beat him. Ha, arrogant humans at their best. But what he said about Kushina, he wasn't gonna let him die quickly, he was gonna drag out his death slowly. And most painfully. Mortal, you really are a stupid fool, to have beat a woman who is pregnant with that of an innocent soul. Truly you are a despicable little man, but nevertheless I cannot abide my presence any longer. I will fulfill my bargain before I drag your pathetic soul into hell, where you can be tortured along with your fellow Shadaime. This information made Minato's eyes widen, but before he could speak, Naruto appeared right in front of him, not making a sound, Naruto's fist already embedded into Minato's stomach. Right then, with a painful grunt, blood shooting out of his clenched teeth, Minato shot right across the training grounds and right into a few trees before slamming into the barrier Mito put up, burning his back. Ah, he stopped when Naruto's hand covered his mouth, muffling his screams before he slammed Minato's head a few times into the barrier, making his hair catch fire while giving severe burns to his head. Then he spin kicked him back to the training fields before appearing over his body, kneeing him in the back with Minato slamming into the ground, creating a massive crater. The sound of bones breaking and a spine snapping in half echoed around the barricaded area. Ah, screamed the Namikaze. Yes, scream mortal, for there is much more to come for your sins. And did Minato suffer? Naruto grabbed him by his leg before swinging him backwards and into the ground, creating a human-sized crater, not letting Minato's pain up the slightest. He swung back and forth repeatedly as the grunts and screams of pain from Minato could be heard as his blood splattered the ground. Not done yet, however, Naruto pulled Minato up from his leg so he could look the man in the eye. Only to grunt in annoyance when the man tried to use his other leg to kick off him, only to fail as Naruto's iron leak grip beat Minato's feeble attempt to break free of his hold. Pathetic mortal-esque, rimming around like a worm, he muttered before threw the Namikaze to the side, sending into the ground, causing a trench before he hurled right into the trunk of tree. However, despite the internal pain he was feeling, Minato was able to stand up before he pulled out his Hiraishin kunai, causing Naruto quirk an eyebrow before Minato hurled it toward Naruto, which the devil easily shifted his head slightly to the right. However, he didn't even flinch when the man disappeared in a yellow flash before he appeared behind him. For Naruto's left arm was already in motion, which backhanded the Namikaze, crushing his lower jaw before he was sent flying. Only for him to vanish in another yellow flash before he appeared above Naruto with a swirling blue orb held in his right hand. Take this, Hiraishin. Level 2, Rasengan. With a shout, Minato thrust his attack downward. Only to his immense shock did the purple malevolent orbs of his mysterious attack to slowly glance upwards, piercing directly into his own eyes before with speed he couldn't see. Naruto's arm blurred faster than the spectators could see and actually stopped the Rasengan with his palm. Minato was in shock at this, but what froze him on contact was Naruto's bristling purple orbs filled with such intense hate it made him unable to speak a word. You call this an attack? Pitiful, was all he said before Kleckned his hand, causing the Rasengan to disperse before he crushed Minato's hand, causing the injured Namikaze's eyes to widen in pain before he was pulled down by his neck before he was slammed into ground, his muffled screams echoing within the confined sealed training grounds. Watching this all in content was Kushina while Mito pat her head. It must be good to see her most hated enemy be thrashed around like a rag doll. Naruto-sama, he is quite angry, Mito muttered as she saw Naruto toss the namikaze into the air before slamming his head face first into the ground once more, making another crater, while possibly breaking many bones in his face before grabbing the man by what hair on his head he had left before ripping it completely off his scalp. Yeah, I can see why you like him, he's very protective of women, from what I can see. Kushina muttered, her eyes gleaming in happiness as Minato was being beaten around like the bastard he was. It was hilarious in a way to see the one person she wanted dead for so long to scream like a child when he had his arm pulled out of socket and broken in the opposite direction. I agree, and I'll tell you this, Naruto-sama may be downright evil when you first meet him. The coldest being you would ever meet, but after a while you'll see why I like being his slave. Naruto held the namikaze by the throat, his feet dangling above the ground. His body was broken and beat beyond all healing. His face was nothing but a bloody smear, his nose broken and twisted in a way there wasn't any fixing it. His teeth all but shattered, all four of his limbs broken with all of the bones in pieces, with them also embedded into his inner muscles of his limbs. Naruto let a small cold smirk when he heard the mortal all but whimper now, since his scream were silenced when he ripped out his tongue. He don't think we're done yet, mortal. His smirk turned downright vicious even more when he saw the fear in his eyes. It grew even more so when he grasped his beaten and broke arm. Your torture is far from done. With that, Naruto slowly ripped Minato's right arm off all the way from his shoulder, making blood shoot out like a geyser as the tortured human whimpered even more loudly in pain. Grabbing the other, Naruto's cold expression was quite the sight, with all the blood all over his face, making him truly look even more demonic than he already was. Here goes another one. Then the left arm was ripped off from the shoulder, making blood shoot out at the same speed. Next he grabbed both legs into Minato's immense never-ending pain, ripping them off from his pelvis before he spoke. Now, die, slowly, while choking on your own blood and flesh. With that, Naruto slammed both of the dismembered legs through Minato's stomach and chest before he grabbed arms and slammed them both through his mouth and back through his head, making his body quickly go limp in a matter of seconds of twitching. Meh, pathetic mortal, deserved every bit of pain he got, he voice changing back to normal. That's when he saw the soul of Minato coming up from his dead bloody body, only for him to grasp it, making its eyes wide in fear. Oh, you're not going anywhere, you're going to hell where you belong. With that, Naruto slammed his other hand onto the ground, speaking. Akuma no Yona Magiku, Jigoku no Doraguchin, demon magic, dragging chain of hell, with a dark portal the size of a human formed before a crimson-red spiked chain shot out before it grasped Minato's soul. It screamed in pain as it swirled around his soul, shredding it and damaging it before it slowly pulled back to the portal. Minato's soul saw this and tried to fiercely pull back, only to be stopped and with a final tug, Minato's screaming soul was pulled into the abyssal portal straight into hell, where his soul would forever be tortured for an eternity. Sighing, Naruto turned toward Minato's body and raised his hand. Akuma no Yona Magiku, Shinshoku, demon magic, erode. With that, a green aura came off Naruto's hand before it drifted slowly to Minato's dead tortured body before it was enveloped by the greenish aura before his body started to smoke. Mito grinned, knowing this was the same technique he used to kill Hashirama. Kushina was still watching in amazement. She watched of how this Naruto, this demon from hell, completely and utterly tortured and killed Minato without even trying, but took pleasure in killing him. She watched with wide eyes as Minato's body started to let out a poisonous-looking smoke before his flesh started to burn from within before melting out, as did his eyes. Everything melted into a green liquid, leaving behind only his skeleton. Stopping the technique, Naruto turned his head toward Mito and Kushina before walking over to them. Alright, it is finished now, Kushina, it is time I marked you. He saw her eyes widen a bit, but the reassurance from Mito made her feel slightly more relaxed. Kneeling down, Naruto brought out his index finger before it flamed up in the purple aura before he grasped her shoulder. Gently he pulled down her shirt a bit, revealing her unblemished skin, thus making her blush like Mito did when he did this. This will hurt a bit, Kushi-chan, just bear with it. Mito cooed as Naruto dragged his finger over her shoulder. Kushina whimpered in pain at feeling the hot dragging of Naruto's finger upon her shoulder. When it was done though, she stopped a bit to look down at her shoulder to see, slave of Hellwing Naruto. Hellwing Naruto has a very good ring to it. Kushina mentally though, as she watched the mark disappear into her skin. Now Kushina, I will be back along with Mito when your death is near. When you die I will drag your soul with me to hell. Till then, enjoy your life as a human. Mito, let's go, to which she nodded before standing up with a smile directed to Kushina. Kushina watched them walking away, feeling something within her wanting to tell Naruto to stop, to wait something. She didn't know what it was, but she wanted him to stay. Wait, she shouted, making them both stop. Naruto looked over his shoulder, his eyebrow raised in question. Yes, to which she slowly walked up to him before bowing her head before him. Naruto-sama, would you please do me a favor, CC can you, stay here? Only for a little while, she said, her face blushing up a bit from what he was asking. Mito raised an eyebrow in curiosity while Naruto kept his eyes right on her before he closed them in thought. A few seconds later, he opened them to speak. Well, Lucifer won't be making another move for a while. Very well, we shall stay for 2 days, but that's it. We need to go back afterwards. To which Kushina grinned happily while Mito gave her master a look of gratefulness. Thank you, Naruto-sama, she said, her head down in respect. Naruto nodded before speaking. We shall stay though out of Konoha. I cannot bear being near any of those other mortals, so we shall be staying in the forest. To which Mito nodded, as did Kushina. She was used to sleeping in the wilderness. Getting this, Naruto slammed his hand into the barrier Mito made and gripped it, making a visible white crack appear before it broke like glass. Then let us go then. With that, Naruto jumped off with Mito carrying Kushina in her arms. All of them jumping into the forests away from all prying eyes. No doubt in a few minutes the area would be swarmed with Konoha shinobi. Forest of Death. Dropping down into the forest where they met Kushina first, Naruto walked over to the biggest tree with the widest trunk. His hand hit it a few times before he nodded in what seemed approval. What's he doing? Kushina said, bewildered at what Naruto was doing. Mito just smiled at her reaction. Making our home for the next 2 days. Before she could speak, she heard loud wham. She turned her head in time to see to her shock a 20-foot hole inside the tree with Naruto's outstretched hand, smoke coming off his knuckles. In front of him was a single intention piece of the tree on the ground. This will be where we stay for the 2 days. After that we leave. To which Mito nodded while Kushina spoke. Thank you for doing this, Naruto-sama. To which he just nodded before going inside the tree, them following behind him. He then snapped his fingers, making the same barrier Mito did appear over where the hole he made into the tree was. To make sure we aren't found, can't have Kami's forces onto us. Now I'm gonna go take a nap. With that, Naruto walked over to the more darker part of the tree before sitting on the ground leaning against the tree before closing his eyes. The two watched this before they looked at each other. Wanna tell me about your life as his slave, Mito-sama? Kushina asked, curious to how her next life would be like. Mito just smiled and explained to her of what she went through in her time in hell. 2 days later, Mito explained most of what happened from the very beginning of when she summoned Naruto, to where she died and had her body taken with her to become a demon. She told Kushina everything she had been through in hell, the training she went through by Naruto. Everything she told her of was like a fairy tale to Kushina. Throughout the whole story she sat in her lap listening to her like she did as a child hearing of her other stories. Even then, the baby within her kicked a few times when Naruto was mentioned, and of how he protected her from the demons that flocked to her, and of how he fought against legions upon legions of demons, batting them away like flies, or of him killing Gilgamesh, a fellow demon titan, in only under 3 minutes flat. The next life for her fascinated her greatly, even more so when Akemi told her the life she would have would be a great one, that was for sure. Kushina also told her of how her life has been growing up in Konoha after running away from Uzu no Kuni when it was attacked. She told her of how Konoha had been pleased to have her in their ranks as a shinobi. It was also to the delight of Mito that Kushina told her of how Konoha has all but studied upon finding out what exactly killed their Shadaime. She did tell her of how the Kyuubi was getting along with her in the years, but she also explained of how Konoha had been trying to use her to try and gain the Uzumaki Fuinjutsu from her since they could, and from Mito since her body was gone after her death. To say Mito was pissed was like saying Lucifer had a small power complex. She was downright furious, but kept her demon aura from reaching her master. She didn't want to wake him up on a minor emotional outbreak. Too bad the two didn't know Naruto had heard everything, and his hate for humanity in general rose a few notches. Getting up from his nap, Naruto looked over to see Mito and Kushina sleeping against the inside trunk of the tree, Kushina leaning in against Mito, her arms wrapped around her swollen belly, while Mito herself had her arms wrapped from behind Kushina in a protective manner. Seeing this, Naruto turned away before walking out over to the indention he made in the tree. Looking up at the sky, he concentrated his eyes with a glare. He looked to see slight moving dots far above in the sky. This made him frown before he heard something. Looking back at the two sleeping women, he saw Mito rubbing her eyes with her kimono as Kushina stretched arms out, letting out a big yawn. Kushina moaned before opening her eyes slightly to see Mito waking up as well. Looking around the area, she found her breath hitching in her throat to find Naruto's gaze staring right at her, his purple eyes looking deep into her soul. Feeling his intense gaze, she looked down at her swollen belly as a pink hue come up to her face while the unborn baby kicked a few more times. Mito, it is time we left. I sense Kami's forces searching the area, he said as he walked over to the two before kneeling in front of them. Kushina's eyes somehow gained a saddened look, but she quickly made it disappear. Mito just nodded her head with a small sad smile, knowing she'd have to leave Kushina for a while. Yes, Naruto-sama, I'm ready to leave, he nodded before he snapped his fingers, making the barrier shatter like a broken mirror showing the forest outside. Good, then let us go, only for him to feel something grasping his wrist. Slowly looking down, he found Kushina looking down with her other trembling hand on her swollen belly. In Naruto-sama, could you, before you go, place your hand on my stomach again? I'm sure the baby would like to feel it again, she said slowly, not wanting to anger Naruto the slightest. Naruto kept his eyes on her form before turning his gaze to see Mito's pleading eyes, knowing she wanted him to accept. Sighing a bit, he knelt down. Very well then, lay down. She did so with a big smile coming up her face. Naruto reached the under part of her shirt and brought it up over her swollen belly, showing it in full view once more. Placing his hand atop the pregnant belly, Naruto closed his eyes to feel the baby kick greatly at his touch once more. He let a small twitch of his lip before rubbing her belly, slowly getting the interaction of the baby kicking more. He never saw Kushina's mad blush on her face or the look in her eyes when she was looking at his form with a bit of longing for him to stay a bit longer, and something else only Mito caught. Pulling his hand away, he pulled her shirt back down, while Mito helped her stand before she stared at Naruto with a thankful look in her eyes. Thank you for doing that, Naruto-sama. I hope I haven't made you angry, to which he just waved it off while looking away. It is of no concern, we must leave though. Mito, let us go. With that, his slave nodded before giving a smile to her before walking away with her master into the dark swirling portal back to hell, awaiting the time for death. Kushina watched them go as she rubbed her belly once more as her eyes drifted more on Naruto's, retreating back with a soft smile on her face. Naruto-sama, he truly is like Mito said, may be hard a bit to understand, but I can see a little softness somewhere in him. She felt her baby kick again at her mental thought. Looking down, she smiled. You like Naruto's touch, huh? If she would have looked out into the skies above the forest, she would have seen armored figures with white wings on their backs, spears all in their hands. We lost the unholy being. He has left back to hell. We must report back to Kami-sama. The being said. Behind him was countless of the same angelic-looking soldiers, all floating above the scene, weapons in their hands and scowls on their faces. Hell. Dropping back to hell, Naruto and Mito looked around as the portal closed behind them. Seeing nothing much had changed, Naruto walked forward, heading back to his house, Mito walking by his side. Naruto-sama, if I may ask, which of Kami's forces was there? To which Naruto gave her a side glance as he kept walking. It was Kami's personal guardsmen, the personally trained soldiers by Kami. The Jujigen no Guntai Crusader Legion. They are by many means stronger than the legions of demons down here in hell, and you wouldn't have been able to fight them at your current power. I can take them, no doubt, for I have been here much longer than that force was even created. My power outmatches their own by leaps and bounds. Now we must go. You need to get back to your training, he said, to which Mito managed a nod while thinking on this force from heaven. Heaven, court of Kami. Shouting of many voices could be heard in the court of Kami. Male to female, all was outrageous voices of anger, and it was all aimed at one being, a woman with a body of a goddess, and make any straight or gay man straight as a board, and make all women jealous, or make a lesbian die of a nosebleed. She had long flowing silver hair that which seemed to glow even in the white court. Her eyes were that of a golden which seemed to shine with a inner wisdom and power but slight irritation. Her skin was a pale porcelain that of which looked so creamy and gentle to the touch it was begging to be touched. She wore a white kimono with silver treads at the end. Designs of flowers danced across her clothing. She had a black sash around her waist. She had simple wooden sandals on. Her was Kami, ruler over heaven and strongest and oldest of her fellow deities. Beside her was her sister Megami, goddess over death. She looked just like her, only with a few different features. Her hair was a mixture of white and purple, with her skin being the same as Kami's own, only a bit paler. Her fingernails were sharp. 2 bangs framed her face, as her eyes were the same golden amber as her sister's. Her face was completely heart-shaped but with a more hardened look. She wore a very royal revealing black kimono, but still good amount of decency. It just showed a good amount of cleavage inside of her legs. Around her waist was a purple obi holding the kimono tighten in a graceful knot in her back as it flows with her. Right now both Kami's and Megami's delicate eyebrows was twitching in annoyance as the court was filled with their fellow gods and goddesses yelling and screaming from what had been going on. Ever since Lucifer's defection from Yami, hell had been all but nice. They had been attacking her forces, with Lucifer leading them as well as him attacking Yami, their other fellow god. He was just sitting quietly watching the scene with an amused expression. There was also the screams of one particular demon in hell. This demon was Hellwing Naruto, the devil that shook hell to its very core and was said to have the power to match even Lucifer himself. His deeds and actions against both Lucifer and Yami have reached even them, and many of their fellow deities have felt that he should be killed before he becomes too strong. Honestly, they just thought some were scared that Naruto was said to have beaten Gilgamesh in under 3 minutes flat for just annoying him. Kami-sama. She heard her name looking at the doors slamming open. She found her Crusader Legion all coming in with worried faces. Yes, what is it you have to report? Her voice booming with authority none could match. All attention was all the Crusader Legion, even Yami was looking at them with a curious eye. We've returned, and what we have seen is not good. For the Chosen One's mother has made a deal with a demon. This made all sound go completely silent as Kami's eyes were wide. Her Chosen One's mother made a deal with a demon. Is she dead? Did the demon kill her? Is the unborn child okay? What happened? She asked, her voice commanding, making many of her fellow deities shiver a bit from the power from her voice. It happened 2 days ago. Uzumaki Kushina, she made a deal to have her enslavement seals taken off her and to have Namikaze Minato killed, to which many growled at the enslavement seals. Mostly the females of the court. Kami and her sister scowled at the mention of those seals. I see, and who was the demon she summoned? This made them shift uneasily, which many caught. Amaterasu, getting annoyed, spoke. Who was it? To which the Crusader Legion captain spoke. It was Naruto. Hellwing Naruto, the demon titan devil from hell. He finished before keeling on the ground once more. Once the name of that certain devil was spoken, Yami released so much killing intent that it surprised even Kami and Megami. Did you just say Hellwing's name? He was there, this whole time, and with the Chosen One's mother of all people. His godly voice making the Legion quake under his power. Kami, seeing this, released her power with a quick flare, making Yami's own pale in comparison. That is enough. Yami, sit down and calm yourself. Captain, tell me, how long was he there? Her voice soft and caring as she spoke. The Legion fully relaxed under their master's voice. He was there with her for 2 days. He and his unholy slave Uzumaki Mito stayed with Kushina, not mentioning she requested for them to stay a bit longer. This seemed to disturb the deities, while Susanoo narrowed his eyes in suspicion. That demon stayed with Kushina for 2 days. Is she alright? Amatsu Mikabashi spoke, to which one of the Legion nodded. Kami took this all in stride and spoke. I see, thank you for reporting this to me. Go back out there and keep watch. I want Hellwing watched when he comes back to Ningenkai, to which they nodded before going back through the doors. Though none saw the slight hesitation in Kami and Megami's eyes when they sent them away. Though no one would expect what would be happening in the following years. 3 years later. Hell, it's been a century since Naruto and Mito were summoned by Kushina, her making a deal with Naruto and him marking her as a slave. After leaving Ningenkai, Naruto had Mito go back into training, for she needed it just in case the next time they went to Ningenkai and they were attacked she would be ready. Of course, he paid up the time he lost in hell by pissing off Lucifer when he destroyed 10 of his legions when he returned, showing he was back. Thus made the normal schedule of him killing more of Lucifer's men day by day, while Yami's own forces even helped a few times to help kill him. Only to be destroyed completely and utterly. Right now, Naruto and Mito were enjoying a stroll through hell, as many of the demons that knew Naruto and Mito for their kinder deeds with helping their towns waved at them before Naruto stopped suddenly before looking up as if staring at nothing. Mito saw this and spoke. Naruto-sama, is something wrong? He just kept looking up before he spoke. It is near. It would seem Kushina isn't as lucky as you were, Mito. Kushina's death is coming. This made her eyes wide in horror. Turning her gaze toward her master, she spoke. What? But, wait. Her due date is soon. Oh no. She'll die by childbirth. No Uzumaki woman has ever suffered such a fate, for our bodies are too strong from being drained from such a thing, plus with Kushina's special chakra. This made Naruto nod a bit. I don't know how she would die, for that is only known by the goddess of death Megami and Kami. The only thing I know is that her time is near. Mito slowly turned to him and spoke so quietly many wouldn't hear her, but Naruto did. Naruto-sama, there's something I have to ask of you. Naruto turned to her, giving her his full attention. Yes. She bent her head low, her hair shadowing her eyes. Is there something you can do? Save her. I mean, stop Kushina's death where she could spend some time with her child. A week at least. Now Naruto didn't expect this question but wasn't surprised Mito asked with such nervousness in her voice, but I can't. This made Mito snap her head at him. Can't, or won't, her voice quivering, knowing there was times when Naruto was very cold and showed he was a true devil. Ignoring the barb, Naruto spoke. I can't for 2 reasons, Mito. First of all, on the business side, it would be seen from me for delaying the deal from completion by giving her more time to live. I honestly owe her nothing to do this for her. I must do my part as she does her own. True, this may seem cruel, especially in this type of situation, but this is how deals between demons and humans are. The second reason is that, by ancient law, I can't interfere with her day of death. I am under no circumstance to prevent her death of a human, or else the punishment of such a thing is very high. his tone extremely grave, more so than she's ever seen. Gulping nervously, Mito spoke, "WW, what is this punishment?" Naruto looked at her and spoke with the most grave tone. She shivered, feeling a cold chill shoot through her spine. "Total soul obliteration," he said, "since he may be a devil, but he won't lie to his slave." Mito stood there, her eyes widen in terror at what she just heard before she hung her head low, knowing that Naruto wouldn't break such a law to have his soul destroyed. "Now let us go, Mito." With that, Naruto opened up a portal before walking in, Mito following in behind him. Hi no Kuni outside the sealing chamber. Coming out of the portal, Naruto and Mito came upon a large rock formation with many Konoha shinobi guarding the entrance, walking toward the side of the chamber. Naruto felt Kushina energy inside as well as Kyuubi's chaotic Yukai as well. "We can't enter, so we shall watch." With that, he gathered Yukai into his hand before speaking. Akuma no Yona Magiku. Hyoji Mirror, Demon Magic. Viewing mirror. With a Naruto swipe his hand a few times, making a small dark mirror appear showing what was happening on the inside. "I see, she's already in labor," Mito muttered as Naruto nodded. They watched as Hiruzen had his hand over the seal, keeping Kyuubi under control while his wife Bawako delivered the child. They saw the many Anbu guarding the outside and inside of the chamber. Kushina's screams from pushing her child out was heard from within even them. "Aahhhnn," she shouted while Bawako could see the crown in view. "One more push, Kushina, one more." Hearing this, Kushina with all of her strength pushed, making her unborn daughter come out. Bawako pulled her out. Before cutting the umbilical cord, cleaning and wrapping her up, Bawako showed the sleeping whiskered face of Naruki to Kushina, who smiled greatly upon her daughter. "She's so cute," she said, seeing the tuft of blonde with red highlights hair in full view. Mito smiled greatly at seeing Kushina's daughter being born. It always great to see another Uzumaki brought into the world, and especially since there was very few of them left in the world. Naruto himself watched the scene with a small ghost of a smile on his face. It was barely able to be seen, but it was there. That's when he looked to see a masked cloaked figure killing the Anbu guard before coming into the chamber. Mito saw him enter and saw how the man killed Bawako before grasping the child. They watched the two argue over something trivial before the masked man threw the baby into the air. "Oh no," Mito gasped. Naruto prepared a shadow spell just in case. "Naruki," Kushina cried before Hiruzen, despite his old age, got to the baby in time before hearing the man's exclamation. "Hope you can get rid of the explosive tags." His eyes widened before pulling off the cover wrapped around Naruki to see active explosive tags. Naruto narrowed his eyes at this before Hiruzen pulled them off in time as they exploded. The cloaked man getting to Kushina before warping away in what Naruto knew as Kamui. Let's go, Mito. Gotta keep an eye out for Kushina till she dies." With that, they both disappeared into the portal following Kushina's signature while Hiruzen shushined out of the chamber. Following the cloaked man, they found him with Kushina, chained up by some two split pillars with Kyuubi coming out of her seal. "Now Kyuubi, I order you to kill your former container." And to Genjutsu induced to fight back, Akemi shot her claw right at Kushina. Mito gasped before trying to interrupt it, only for Naruto to stop her. "Naruto-sama, we can't just," only for him to shake his head as he spoke in a non-nonchalant manner. "Still haven't noticed, have you?" Blinking, she turned her gaze at him. "What are you?" Only for her eyes to widen when she felt the multiple energies in the sky. Looking up, she saw the Jujigen no Guntai, Crusader Legion, all above them staring them down. Angels." Naruto nodded. "Yes, they are here to stop us from interfering. They've been here before we even arrived. While I could defeat them all as they are no match for me, but that is their objective, to delay the both of us." Mito managed a strained nod as she glared at the angels above her. As the scene unfolded before them all, Mito slumped as she watched Kyuubi about to pierce Kushina, only for her to disappear in a yellow flash. Mito blinked. "I didn't know she knew how to use that bastard's jutsu." Naruto just nodded as he watched the cloaked man wave off her disappearance before heading to Konoha, Kyuubi following his lead in her genjutsu crazed state. Yes, it was a modified version meant for a one-time usage. They all watched the scene unfold as Kyuubi was managed to be pushed back via giant summons as Hiruzen prepared something only Naruto knew. Thus made him narrow his eyes in annoyance, knowing what the man was gonna do. Sarutobi was alone with Kyuubi on the battlefield as he ordered all of his men back, but before he could do anything, chakra-coated chains shot out of the ground wrapping around Kyuubi's body before slamming it to the ground, snout and all chained down. Looking in shock, Hiruzen saw Kushina on the ground coughing up blood. Glancing at Hiruzen through her exhausted eyes, "Hurry up and get out of here. I'll take the Kyuubi down with me," only for Hiruzen to shake his head. "That is not possible, Kushina. We both know you're barely holding those chains and, besides, you're close to dying. The only way to stop the Kyuubi from killing us all is to seal it away," which she frowned at. "Seal? What are you?" Only for her eyes to widen, knowing exactly what he was implying now. Clenching her fists, she stood up despite her exhausted state and yelled. No, I will not allow you to, only to fall to her knees coughing up more blood. Mito teared up at seeing her sight while Naruto just turned his gaze at the angels above him and glared, making the group tense. No. Not her. I will not allow you, Kushina uttered, blood flowing out of her mouth, her eyes set ablaze in hate, glaring at Hiruzen in defiance, only for the man to shake his head. No, Kushina, only an Uzumaki can hold the Kyuubi at bay, and you're almost dead. This is the only way, he said as he prepared the ceiling. I will not allow it, she yelled, releasing the Hachiman Tonko, the 8 celestial chakra gates. With that, her chakra jumped completely, shocking Hiruzen and surprising Kyuubi. Naruto's own eyes widen a bit while Mito let tears fall, knowing what would happen when she did this. Using the monumental chakra she gained, Kushina pulled the chains down, slamming the Kyuubi into the ground before she started to pull on it, making the Kyuubi drag itself to her where her original seal was located. That's when she felt the drawback of using the gates and fell to her knees. Her aura fading, Kyuubi took this chance and attacked Hiruzen. After summoning the cradle and placing Naruki in it, Hiruzen looked up to see Kyuubi's massive claw coming its way. Kushina, gathering the last bit of strength she had, jumped in front of the attack, getting impaled by Akemi's claw. Mito's eyes widened while Naruto closed his eyes. Hiruzen, seeing Kushina not moving, did the required hand seals, ignoring the baby's cries, and slammed his hands on the ground. Forbidden Fuinjutsu, Shiki Fujin. Dead demon consuming seal. That's when the apparition of Megami appeared in her Shinigami form, as the humans call it nowadays. They all watched it unfold as Hiruzen had Megami seal Kyuubi into the blonde-haired baby and sacrificing his soul to her. Doing this, Megami ripped out Hiruzen's soul from his body and ate it. Seeing Kushina's soul coming out, Naruto took this as his K and appeared right in front of Megami, taking Kushina's soul. Kushina saw Naruto staring her down as her soul started to form and smiled, uttering two words, Naruto-sama. Naruki-chan. With that, Naruto sealed Kushina's body away. Megami watched this with a smile. It's good to know that you follow the rules unlike your fellow demons. Hellwing, to which Naruto just gave her a glance and spoke. True, it's also good to know that you deities can be much more evil than us demons, to make her death like this. Thus making Megami frown and Mito smirk, knowing her master shut up the deity quite greatly. The captain of the Crusader Legion was frowning at the scene. The Chosen One's mother was in the hands of a demon. Now he had order not to interfere with anything that goes by all ancient laws, but he couldn't let this unholy thing take the Chosen One's mother to hell. Hellwing, stop right there. The captain announced his men all ready for what their captain was gonna do. Megami gave them a curious side glance while Naruto just spoke his back to them. What is it? I have a deal to keep here, as Mito looked between her master and the scowling Legion captain. That's the thing, we cannot allow you to take her soul to hell. We shall not let you corrupt her like you've corrupted Uzumaki, Mito. This made Mito scowl in annoyance. Now this got Naruto's attention. Did they not know that interfering with a deal between a demon and a human was breaking Kami's laws? And in front of Megami, no less. Hee pitiful. Oh, you think you can stop me? Megami, you bore witness to this. They tried to stop the deal, now, they shall pay. Which Megami just nodded slowly, knowing they did break one of Kami's laws. Though her eyes were still locked upon Naruto's form, as his body was now set aflame by the fires of hell. Mito, watch carefully. This is the first time I've shown you my transformation. Burn this in your mind. This is the power of a devil. And with that, Naruto's whole form was engulfed in the flames of hell circling his form. The Crusader Legion all tensed, knowing their target was transforming. They had all heard rumors, stories and myths about Hellwing's transformation. But what they saw scared them beyond anything. Megami's eyes were wide in shock. The power coming from Naruto was over Lucifer's own, while Mito was in awe, complete and utter awe. For in front of them all was a 7-foot black armored figure. His whole body completely dressed in demonic armor. Spikes jutted out of his shoulders, with his purple demonic eyes coming from the black spiked helmet of the demonic-looking knight. His feet now spiked metal boots, his hands now gauntlets, with all of his fingers overshadowed by razor-sharp metal fingers. His 2 10-feet-long black wings spread out wide as they can be showing of what he was. His devilish 5-foot tail shot out of his backbone, spikes running along the back of it, with the color being a crimson. Over the whole armor was demonic runes going down all over his metal armor. The flames of hell danced across his armor and the ground he stood upon. His power and Yukai oozed out of him like a leaking dam close to breaking. The Crusader Legion were trembling in pure unadulterated fear and terror. The rumors, the myths and stories did this no justice. This being before them scared them worse than Yami did. Now pay the price for breaking the rule and annoying me. With that, flame sprouted from Naruto's hand before it took shape. They all watched as the flame took the shape of a 6-foot katana, only the blade being pure black in color with the red demonic crimson runes embedded within the blade. The handle being of pure blood red crimson, with the guard taking the shape of a demon's maw wide open. At the end was a small black chain dangling at the end. Meet Apocalypse, now die. With that, Naruto appeared in the middle of the Crusader Legion faster than Mito or the Legion could see, and before they knew it, 4 of the soldiers were falling to the ground, their wings sliced off along with their heads. Sensing the oncoming enemy, Naruto turned around and slammed his hand in time into the face of an oncoming soldier and chuckled. He, eat this, Biguban no Yami wa, Farashu. Big bang, darkness flash before a darkness encircled Naruto's hand before the angel's eyes widen in horror. Second later, that angel along with half of that Crusader Legion was obliterated by a wave of condensed darkness. It tore them apart, burning them, disintegrating them all. The clouds were split by the attack. Megumi watched this in complete shock. That attack alone would have dealt a serious blow to a deity. Mito watched as her master just obliterated half of Kami's personal forces with one attack. Her eyes were filled in amazement as she burned her master's devil form into her mind forever. It was like looking at the very embodiment of power. His power was full out, and it made her feel like she was in an ocean of yokai. Naruto's power was a literal maelstrom, it growing with each passing day. The captain watched horrified at how this unholy being just killed off half of his men. With one attack at that. He had to give the order to retreat lest he lose more men, but a deep burning hatred flared in his eyes when he looked upon Naruto's devil form. As for flames of hell burned around him, making him look like a grim reaper coming for its next victim. His purple eyes glowed murderously when he set his gaze upon them, his Nodaichi flames up with the fires of hell. Seeing no other way, retreat, head back to heaven, in which they did, but Naruto chased down a few, killing a few of them before the rest left through the portal. Seeing them gone, Naruto flew back down to Mito, his appearance making her very lightheaded. Megumi just eyed him curiously before leaving through a portal when Naruto's demonic gaze cast upon her. Mito, it is time to go. I tire of this place. His voice returning to normal, his form changing back to his normal form. Mito just nodded dumbly, still in shock at seeing her master transform and fight like that. Why yes, Naruto-sama, and with a final glance to Naruki, Mito followed her master through the portal. Though none of them saw the blonde pig-tailed Senin Senju Tsunade come upon Naruki with annoyance and arrogance brimming in her eyes. Hell. Once reaching hell, Naruto pulled out Kushina's soul to see it form into Kushina's form the first time they met her. Then Naruto unsealed her body before he started to do the same ritual he did for Mito. Kushina was too busy looking around in awe. She never did the battle Naruto did against the Crusader Legion, for her soul was still forming to even feel anything or see anything. Kushina, startled out of her wonderment, she saw her new master looking at her with a giant circle made of blood in front of him, her body on the circle with strange symbols going directly to it. Why yes, she said, to which Naruto cast his eyes back to the circle. This is the next part. When sacrificing your humanity, I'm gonna be merging you and your body together and let the yokai from me gather into your body, transforming you into a demon, or more specifically a devil. To which she looked confused a bit, but a look from Mito saying she would know later. She nodded. Okay, I understand, to which Naruto nodded before he began the ritual. He did the same with Mito, only this time he didn't need to renew her body to being young since it had only been a few months older than they first met. Though he did have to heal it up from the pregnancy and massive fatigue. So when the similar flash of light came, a not so much changed Kushina appeared in a crimson-red kimono with black trimmed edges, and, like Mito, her bust increased to a DD cup from the C cup she usually had. Her goddess-like figure became even more slender, making her look perfect with every curve on her body. Her violet eyes stayed the same, only more of darker shade, making them unique among many things. Though the yokai flowing through her showed she was a devil now, just like Mito was made into. Whoa, I feel different, but I don't look it. Mito just grinned since she said the very same thing. Don't worry, you've just become a devil like Mito and I am. You'll be trained by me, and if I'm not there, Mito will help you as she does her own training. Like I said with her Kushina, I will not have a weak slave and want you to be able to protect yourself if and when the time comes. So be prepared, for your training comes soon, to which she nodded with a small smile on her face. With that, the next few years were gonna be very hectic for Naruto and his beautiful slaves. If only the proverbial typhoon they will cause that will shake the very foundations of the 3 realms. Thanks for listening. In the next chapter, please leave a review. I would love to hear your feedback. Especially if it helps me improve the overall story.